There's a region of the United States that is near and dear to my heart. One of those reasons, it's where I learned to fly fish and where the vast majority of my fly fishing experiences have taken place. And even though there's a lot of people that live here, there's plenty of fish to go around. And one of the things that is most beneficial to anglers looking to find popular spots or spots that are off the beaten path is a good guidebook. Today, I will be talking about the 3 guidebooks I think you need for this region on Casting Across. Hi, I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. The Mid-Atlantic technically goes from New York all the way down to North Carolina, but today we're talking more about the heart of that region. And nothing against West Virginia or Delaware or New Jersey, but I'm focusing mostly on Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. And part of the reason is there is this kind of quadrant of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and DC, and the suburban sprawl that comes out of each one of those cities that creates this high concentration of people and a really high concentration of anglers. This is, if you were to draw like a line between those cities, there's a lot of activity that happens in and around the region of just those 4 cities. But there are so many fly fishing opportunities that are in that area, and then certainly as you head northward, southward, and westward. And today I'm talking about some books that can give you a little bit of a leg up on finding the spots that everybody's fishing and getting a knowledge about how to fish them, as well as locating some areas that aren't going to be as popular for most anglers in that area if you're willing to look a little bit harder and looking to drive a little bit. And one quick word about guidebooks. I know that they are static. That is to say, the information printed in them isn't going to change. So as regulations change, as fishing conditions change, and just as the angling scene moves on from where it was yesterday, you're not going to have an update until those authors and those publishers potentially publish an update. So online, you get a lot more up-to-date information, but it isn't necessarily going to be as vetted. Now, it could come from a fly shop, and honestly, I would say lean on fly shops hard for up-to-date information. But even a regional fly shop isn't going to have statewide knowledge that's comprehensive in the way that a lot of these guidebooks are put together. So I would say use all 3 in tandem. Certainly is your fly shop. By no means should you ignore the benefits you get from talking to those people. Use the internet. The internet is incredibly helpful, but also utilize guidebooks. They are a very, very valuable tool, even if they might be 5, 10, 15, or even 20 years old. The first one today that we are talking about is Bo Beasley's Fly Fishing Virginia. This is part of the No Nonsense Fly Fishing Guide series. And this is a good book because it is put together exceptionally well. It's not just trout water. There is salt water, and you're going to get a lot of information that you can use if you're not much of a saltwater angler. Actually, one of the great things about Bo's book here is that if you are a trout angler, you have the info you need to get onto the salt or into warm water, from warm to trout or salt, and all of those combinations. Lots of big full color photographs, lots of good information, but the maps are one of the highlights of this book. There was a time where you would purchase maps from fly shops that would give you all the information that you can now get online, but here you have a very, very good tool to get this information. So Fly Fishing Virginia by Bo Beasley covers the entirety of the state. Now, there are certainly more waters that are out there. There's other books that are a little bit older that are going to be a little bit more comprehensive, but this is a great introduction to some of the best fly fishing in the state. And honestly, if you're fly fishing Virginia, you need to be fly fishing for smallmouth, and you need to be fly fishing for saltwater species as well. The trout fishing is spectacular, but to really get a feel for everything Virginia has to offer, then you want to have that diversity of angling opportunities. So it's the first book. Moving north, we have A Guide to Maryland Trout Fishing. This is an updated edition of this book. It's put out by Charlie Gelso and Larry Coburn. This is an excellent book for a really underappreciated part of the country for fly fishing. Maryland actually was such a popular kind of under the radar. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but it was a kind of place that people in northern Virginia and in south central Pennsylvania would fish so much, as well as western PA and also in West Virginia, that at one point in time they had a reciprocal license program. So whatever a Maryland resident would pay in Pennsylvania for all that trout water, a Pennsylvania resident would have to pay when they fished in Maryland. That stunk for me as a Pennsylvania resident, as a Virginia resident, but times have changed and those laws have changed as well. But Maryland is a phenomenal area for fishing. Certainly the eastern shore and all the saltwater opportunities, but once you move really kind of outside of the Beltway and westward, you begin to encounter some spectacular trout fishing. Lefty Kreh himself was from that area, kind of the dead center of Maryland, and a lot of those waters were his home waters. But you start to hit spring creeks and big tailwaters as you start to move out west. And so this book does a fantastic job of giving you more information than you would ever need for some of these smaller waters. And then, of course, you get good maps. But this is a great book, especially if you live in that area. If you live in Northern Virginia, if you live in Southern Pennsylvania, it is so easy to fish Maryland, and there's times where the water releases on some of those tailwaters, the spring creeks are going to be fishable when your home waters are not an option. So a guide to Maryland trout fishing, this is in its 3rd edition. Now to the Keystone State, and there's a lot of books that cover Pennsylvania fly fishing. And if you would have asked me maybe 15 years ago which book I thought was the best guidebook, I would have been a little conflicted. However, this most recent book that covers the entire state does a spectacular job, and it really has risen to the top of my chart, and that is Keystone Fly Fishing. This is put out by Headwater Books, and there are too many authors to list. Mike Heck and Jay Nichols and Dave Rothrock and Brian Shoemaker. This is kind of a who's who of Pennsylvania guides and notable anglers, and it is not a small book. However, what do you expect? Do you expect black and white pictures, expect illustrations? No, we have full color photographs and full color maps. This book is great because of the information, but this is one of the best packages of a book I've seen in a long time. Now, I think it's about 8 years old right now, but it is still just an exceptional resource. And the reason why it has so many authors, getting back to that, is because each region of the state has at least one voice speaking into what you can find, where you need to go, how you need to approach that area, which is great. Now, there's some excellent guidebooks where one person goes through and gives you all the information because they talk to people, they do the research, they spend a lot of time, energy, and effort driving around the state. But I really like this approach because there's even some small niche spots, and the people they find are people that I know, and they are the expert in that small part of Pennsylvania. So Keystone Fly Fishing is a really, really good book, and I'm just so pleased with the way that this book is put together. So, are there other books you can get? Yes. Are there books that cover West Virginia and New Jersey and Delaware and New York? Absolutely. But these 3 are the 3 that I would say you absolutely need to pick up if you are a resident of one or all 3 of these states, especially if you live in the southern part of Pennsylvania, the northern part of Virginia, or Maryland, because you're going to want to fish everywhere that you can at any time. Is there a book that you would maybe swap out with one of these? Is there a book that you would say, hey, this is the one you need for those other states in the Mid-Atlantic that I didn't talk about? Is there a region where you'd like me to talk about kind of the same thing? Let me know in the comments below, or Matthew@castingacross.com. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.